Chapter 7. Dropping Seeds? Seeing Signs of Improvement. After our last session with Carl, I had felt that Saturday would be the day to remove the other two reptilians. But during the week I kept having the same sense that I didn't need to wait. It could be done at any time. I asked the Arcturians if Carl needed to be present. The answer was no. Did I need to tell Carl what I was doing? Again, no. Then at 8:07 on Friday evening, I was sitting on the couch reading a book on psychic protection when the Arcturians came through. I asked, "All right, we do this now?" And they answered yes. So I went into a meditative state, and the next thing I knew, the Arcturians were taking the two reptilians out of Carl. They let me watch as they removed them and took them wherever they take reptilians. At that point, I didn't know where that was. The visual image I got was a fuzzy, hazy impression, but I don't even get to see that much when a demon or a discarnate is being removed. And I didn't feel the nausea I normally feel when I'm working with demons. Afterward, I didn't say anything to anyone about it, but the next day Lisa asked me if something had happened around 8 o'clock the night before. At approximately the same time the Arcturians were working through me to remove the reptilians from Carl, Lisa had suddenly felt completely drained of energy, and she had an overpowering need to lie down and meditate. She wondered what the significance of that time was. I didn't give her any details about it because I wanted to get confirmation from someone else that the two reptilians had been removed. When Carl arrived for his next session with us, Lisa, Robert, and I were in the midst of discussing some of the fascinating experiences we'd been having with the Arcturians. The minute Carl entered the room, Robert said, "Oh my goodness." Carl looked much healthier than any of us had ever seen him. Low-key as always, Carl acknowledged he had been doing pretty well. He gave some credit to the temperate weather and to the various supplements he'd been taking for his skin inflammation. Although he wasn't feeling great all the time, over the past 4 weeks he'd gradually been feeling better and better, both physically and emotionally. All of us, including Carl, were excited to see any degree of improvement in his condition and his sense of well-being, and this improvement was very noticeable. I reminded him that the work we were doing wouldn't be concluded overnight, and that the healing team still wasn't making any guarantees in terms of an outcome. Carl was hoping we could give him some kind of a time frame, but said he understood we couldn't be more specific or accurate at that point. We reviewed what had happened so far, beginning with my first individual session with him, during which we removed 2 demons and 2 discarnates. The story we had originally gotten from the 3 reptilians, that Carl contained within himself critical information from them that he was required to access and put into writing in order to heal, had changed abruptly once we caught on to their actual agenda. Now we were trying to help Carl exercise his free will and reclaim his body, which is what he'd wanted all along. His understanding of the situation was that there's something in there that's foreign to me, and I'm hoping it's true and it can be removed if it hasn't already been, because that would make my life a lot easier. When Carl mentioned that he hoped it was true, I asked both Robert and Lisa if either one had any doubt whatsoever that it was true. Both said no, quite emphatically. Robert acknowledged that a certain amount of trust was involved in the process we were going through, as well as a testing of our faith. Yet he was certain the work was worthwhile. He believed we were doing the right thing in the right way. Lisa said she had wanted to doubt herself, but her conviction about what we were doing was too strong. I did not have any iota of a doubt either. The spiritual and metaphysical experiences Carl had had over the past 20 years led him to believe it's there, meaning, among other things, that the entities were real. That's why he kept coming back and meeting with us. Although he had a lot of personal doubt, he didn't doubt the possibility that the entities we'd been engaging could be the source of his severe health problems. Having reaffirmed our belief in the process, we said a prayer for protection and asked to connect with our guides. Leaving seeds behind. I then told everyone about the removal of the other 2 reptilians that had taken place since the last session. Lisa confirmed that the 2 reptilians had indeed been removed, but they had left behind what looked to her like little seeds. They hadn't all left seeds. The first one, who had been taken, went so quickly, he didn't have a chance. But one of the smaller ones, who'd just been removed, had left those 3 seeds. The message Lisa heard from the Arcturians was that the energy work being done with Carl needed to continue in order to prevent those seedlings from sprouting. We were all new at dealing with these things, and we didn't yet know what they really were. Carl wondered if they could be seed buds for more reptilians to grow out of. Lisa thought the seeds, which she saw as being in the right shoulder area of Carl's body, function as a beacon or a tracking device. They can't be nurtured, she said. Don't water them or allow them to grow or mature, because the reptilians are just going to start building themselves right back up. She was certainly right about that. They both were. But we didn't know then that we could ask the Arcturians to remove them, just as they had removed the 3 reptilians. Carl had no awareness of the seeds being inside him. He said he was so used to having something in him all the time that he didn't know what it would feel like not to have anything. A tremendous amount of healing had been done on Carl, but he was not yet entirely free. There was still a link between him and some place outside of him that needed to be severed and completely sealed off. Otherwise, the reptilians would be able to harass and control him at will. He might feel better for a short time, but then he would start feeling bad again and the cycle would continue. The Arcturians had been telling us all along that we needed to make sure Carl got a lot of healing during this process, and that message came through loud and clear. Lisa was experiencing pain on her right side, and she saw a vortex in the corner of the room that was pulling at her. Robert felt a tug in the area of his solar plexus, an area where Carl also had a lot of physical discomfort. We needed to do a healing, not just for Carl, but for all of us. Lisa said we had to do it immediately. I agreed. I called in the Arcturians, and also Orion, who had promised us protection, and I asked for a special cleanse. On behalf of all of us in the room, I asked that, if possible, the negative energy associated with Carl, the seeds, connection, cord, portal, vortex, whatever it was, end now. Right away, I felt a huge release. Robert said he felt very warm. And Lisa described seeing a shaft of light coming from above and going straight down into the seedlings. Just a beautiful white light, she said. I thanked everyone, Arcturians, Orion, the rest of our guides, who had been present and assisting us with Carl, since the 3 of us weren't entirely sure what we were doing. How could we be? We were simply showing up and doing what we were asked to do. As soon as I called on Orion, Robert sensed a wave of energy rush forward and through me. Whoosh! Everyone felt a big shift in the energy. Lisa visualized the white light turning into a vortex of light that continued to expand as it shone down on the seedlings. In this forest, which is a metaphor for Carl's body, she said, all the trees started catching on fire. Carl was receiving a major cleanse from the inside out. Lisa saw that the seeds were now charcoal, but the Arcturians were still working. We asked them to get rid of all the particles, every last one, so nothing could reattach, and to clean each of us from inside and out, as well as clean the entire house and the area around the house. I mentioned each one of us by name and went remotely to everyone else's house too, including Carl's. Cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. Cleanse the houses and all the people who lived in them. I had been learning just how specific I needed to be when I asked for something, rather than making the assumption the Arcturians would follow my unspoken intent. And I had to allow enough time instead of rushing through the cleansing process. Cleanse everything. Cleanse it completely. We all felt much lighter afterward. Robert had more flexibility in his neck, and I was affected so deeply I couldn't even continue talking. Carl said he'd felt quite a bit for him. He felt a whoosh first, and then he saw the light. I don't normally see light going through me like this, but it was coming up through me this time, he said. I felt a shift, there's no question about it. That was encouraging to the rest of us, and gave Carl a sense of comfort that at least something somewhere was shifting. Inviting the light in. Carl was still longing for clarity. Just anything that I can know for sure. Just clarity about something. "What the hell am I here for?" He laughed, but we all knew exactly how serious he was. Robert told Carl the Arcturians wanted him to be aware how unusual his experiences were, since there were other people in similar situations. If Carl eventually chose to talk or write about his experiences, others could draw considerable strength from him. But he wasn't there yet. I sensed that the information deep within him would be released a little bit at a time, like a time-release capsule. As he got better, he'd know where he needed to go. Right now, though, he just needed to be gentle with himself and try to reconnect with who he really is. If he just let it happen, everything else would fall into place. Robert encouraged Carl to imagine opening the windows of a dusty mansion and allowing sunlight to penetrate. "Invite the light from the sun into you," he said. Carl said he had actually been standing outside in the sun every day for the past few weeks, which is something he hadn't been able to do until recently. Before now, he hadn't been able to tolerate the sun on his face because of the condition of his skin. "But I've always craved the sun and the light," he said. He mentioned again that when he had first started searching for answers 18 years ago, he thought he was on the right path, but then I got shut down. Robert wasn't surprised. He told Carl that as the light comes in, it exposes anything that isn't in harmony with it. When Carl started opening himself up to the energy and the light so many years ago, a spotlight shone down on all those entities. Everything dark inside him rejected that light and screamed out against it. "Whoa, no way, this is not going to happen." His body then turned into the battleground it was when he first came to see me. But why was his suffering so intense and prolonged? Robert said he was healing a number of things, not just from this lifetime, but from previous lifetimes as well. Lisa was able to see some of his past lives, and she asked him if he wanted to hear about it. Of course he did. "It looks like you had some darkness in past lifetimes," she said. "You were wearing some kind of papal hat, like a priest's or a pope's, and you gave the order to execute many people. In that life, which took place before the Inquisition, Carl was very angry and cruel." Lisa saw many people around him crying and begging for mercy as Carl turned his back and strode into a palace or church. She sensed these activities had continued over several years, during which he caused a great deal of suffering for others and deprived people of their freedom. Many people came to him for sympathy or compassion, but he didn't have any. Carl had heard some of this before from another psychic a long time ago, so it jibed with what he already knew. He also believed he had been a warrior during several lifetimes. In a later lifetime, he had been an advanced healer and was burned at the stake for refusing to heal a tribal leader. Afterward, he said, he brought that anger and rage into his next incarnation to try to heal it. "I've been burning for it a long time this time," he said. We knew that after the removal of the 3 reptilians and the cleanse we just completed, we would need at least 2 sessions of flushing Carl out with light energy. Lisa thought we could work on him individually, but we ultimately agreed this wasn't the time to separate. We needed to continue this joint effort and do it together. Clearly, there was power in our numbers.